Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, what is up? What is good? The King of Lightning here today, bringing you guys some stuff about Fujitora. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not really the biggest fan of finding out this stuff outside of the in-canon material, the manga and the anime and whatnot, mainly the manga. And the reason why is because I feel like this is not really a hard task to do. When it comes to intel like this, it'd be much better off being shown to you in the manga rather than through outside sources like data books and whatnot. Which is part of the reason why, even though the data books are nice in one sense, I'm not a real big fan of them in another sense. Because it gives Oda leeway to kind of not put these things in the actual canon story itself. Now, granted, some of these miscellaneous things, like what does Kane like to eat, or how tall is Rebecca? All right, fine. Like that's not a big deal. But when it comes to things like this, Fujitora's ability, it's like Oda said that we're gonna go back to the reverie at some point. Why not have that revealed during the reverie? See what I'm saying? It kind of takes away from the oomph this would have in the story. So I'm really hoping that what we're getting now for Fujitora is only going to apply for Fujitora and not, let's say, Green Bull. Like, we're going to find out Green Bull's powers in a data book, a starter set. So this is the translation of the starter set 2. Now, this translation is from Dawn of One Piece, and I'm not too sure if they're credible, per se, but we'll take it face value because I saw this as well on the Wikia. I had to confirm that. But I found this out on Friday when I was going through the SBS live on Twitch. And I'm like, let me wait for a second. But then it came out on the wiki. I'm like, all right, fine. So I might as well do it because if the wiki is confirming it, then odds are this is the case. This is the reality. Because it also has some stuff on Conqueror's Hockey, which I most definitely want to get to. But because it breaks one of my theories, but the other one got bolstered at the same time. But I'll go through that whole thing with the tier 3 cats on Twitch, and then I'll put up on YouTube later on, no doubt. But this is a video for YouTube specifically. And I really want to talk about this Devil Fruit power because it's interesting. And it's kind of potentially leading to certain parallels between Paramecia and Logia, where some Logia have counterparts that are Paramecia, but of course they're not the actual element itself. So in this case, you have Fujitora, and his counterpart would, let's say, be Blackbeard. So Blackbeard is gravity, but Blackbeard's some weird darkness, shadow gravity, where like his gravity is almost malleable, where he can like actually control the shape of the gravity, if you would, through shadows. But it has no real form. It has no real substance to it. In his case, it's probably not just darkness, not just gravity, but also anything that applies to darkness. So potentially Blackbeard can do dark matter. If you go over to the One Piece video games, he has attacks called dark matter, where it's like this giant black ball mass, almost like a spirit bomb, and he just forms it and he just drops it down. And it's called dark matter. So the parallel there, of course, would be when he does the black hole, and then we have the kind of pulse and the gravity and the shadow spread to the ground. We see folks get sucked in, and then he creates this kind of vortex where they get sucked into, and you would think that they would probably get crushed to death because when it happens sometimes, even metal gets crushed to death. But if you're human, apparently you can survive. Like we've seen fodder Marines somehow survive Blackbeard's black hole. It's like what's happening there? Like it's kind of weird. But then also he has the Kurozu, and that's what he used against Ace, and also he used against Whitebeard as well, where he goes like this and he kind of sucks away the power of your Devil Fruit. So in the anime, there's this whole clash of Blackbeard and Whitebeard where he's trying to do the Quakes, Whitebeard, but Kurozu, and he's able to negate the powers of Devil Fruit entirely. But the main thing here is that it sucks. It just kind of grabs in. So that's what his powers are tailored to for the most part. He does have Liberation, where he can release it, so there is that variance as well. However, the main thing here is the suction. It's just he can bring things in, or he can drag things into the vortex, but that's all gravity. According to him, he can even swallow light itself. So potentially his gravity, the shadow gravity, could even surpass Kizaru in the sense of how fast Kizaru is, which is the speed of light. His gravity can surpass that because in theory, technically, gravity could be faster than light because you have things like black holes which do absorb light. So it's a weird little dynamic there, but not necessarily a big deal. I don't think Oda's going that far at all. But the main thing here is that in Fujitora's case, he's the Paramecia parallel when it comes to the gravity ability. And in his case, he doesn't have shadows when it comes to how his gravity is utilized. The primary way to utilize is through just regular aura and whatnot, where he has this purple aura, and we see this when in Dressrosa, where in Dressrosa, he's able to levitate all of the rubble, and the rubble itself kind of like just levitates at will. Also, when he's flying with Flamingo, after the whole like Flamingo beats up Law, flying in front of Zoro and Luffy and whatnot. But another way he's able to utilize his gravity is through the rings. And this is where probably the Zushi Zushi comes from, because according to this translation, Zushi is the sound of heavy stomps, usually used to describe sumo wrestlers. So when I think about a sumo wrestler, I'm thinking of when they stomp the ground. And whether or not it's actually like Zushi, I don't know. Alright? But when you think about these big dudes and they're stomping the ground, they're probably like these kind of rings or like ripples if they do so. Like maybe some of that effect, which would indicated by his rings. And his rings, let's say those are the Zushi, if you would. They resemble that. Potentially, and I said before, potentially, they can move even faster than the speed of light. Now, Kizaru, as far as you know, is the fastest guy in One Piece. There are some wonky things with the passives of lasers and whatnot, and folks dodging them. Like, for example, Ivankov, we saw the Monster Trio, Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro. Them against Pacifista, we saw them kind of weave in and out of the lasers and whatnot, and so on and so forth. But it really gets wonky there, because we even seen guys like, I think like random neural fodder have been able to time the lasers of the Pacifista. So it's kind of like, it's wonky, it's shaky. And as far as, you know, Kizaru, I mean, he's still clean when it comes to speed of light. This is honestly probably the reason why I really want to have a space arc. Because when Fujitora uses the rings, and the rings just go up into wherever the hell, like somewhere in deep space, or at least space, and he pulls these asteroids that become meteorites, it's like, where? Because understand the area of effect at which he could use his powers is tremendous. If these things are actually coming from deep space, then he has more effect than Whitebeard. Like, way more. And that's to say, Whitebeard was tilting sections of ocean, and there were other people in other seas feeling Whitebeard do this stuff. The same goes for Blackbeard when he did in the anime and whatnot. There are other seas that felt this stuff. You would think, okay, so from the standpoint of area of effect, there's no way someone that's beating him. Well, in comes Fujitora, and again, he's pulling out meteorites from, like, we don't know. They're just there, and he brings them down. He just, boom, with the Zushis, with the rings. They come at tremendous speed, like a normal meteorite would. And it's pretty crazy, because also these rings have the other effect where when he brought the meteorite upon themselves and Law cut in half, one part went to Flamingo and the other part went to Fujitora. Fujitora made another ring to completely negate the attack itself. And then we saw how it was those three, Law, Don Flamingo, and Fujitora, standing on their pillars in the middle of the sand. Like, it's pretty wild when you think about how powerful this ability is. We're not in space. Only NL is, unfortunately. We're not out there with him. We're not seeing what's happening there. We saw some pirate stuff with some space pirates, and that's it. So will there be a space arc in One Piece? I would love for there to be a space arc in One Piece. I would die for a space arc, all right? I really would. But alas, I don't think Oda is going to make my wish come true, make our wish come true. For those of us that want the Stargate One Piece, and just we go through the portal and we see Tigrick and whatnot. Like, no, it's not happening. Well, it's probably not. Depending on where these things are located, in orbit or whatnot, either they're around the planet, orbiting the planet, or they're in deep space, his air effect is tremendous, like truly tremendous. As far as you know, and this is what I got from the cats on Friday when I got word of this and I got the link and whatnot. This power applies to Fujitora himself and not his sword. So it is a genuine paramecia power that he ate. The sword would have been a cool thing. It really would have been a cool thing. But no, that's his ability. That's his paramecia ability. So Fujitora breaks the trend. I'm not going to say Green Book because we haven't seen what he can do yet. Some folks theorize that he's a plant-based Logia. Possible. Very possible. Other folks say that he's Earth. So think of green. Like whatever elements or powers go with green, he may be something akin to that. Aside from wind, because wind is probably dragon. It's safe to say that wind is probably dragon. So in this case, Green Bull could be Earth. Some folks want to say time, but then we have Toki Toki, so there probably isn't 2 time fruits. I highly doubt that. But then if you want to say, well, time is a part of nature itself, so there could be a paramecia time and then a Logi time. Like, listen, time having substance is very, very questionable. So odds are no. So plant or Earth, and that's really it. That's all we're getting from that. But Fujitora does break this mold of the admirals having Logias, of course, and he's a paramecia. Because again, you can't have, at least as far as I can tell, you can't have 2 of the same types in a category. So you can't have, unless you're a zone, but then they have even different models. So you're not going to have 2 dove fruits that are Logia that also manipulate gravity. Odds are. So he's a paramecia, he has those rings. They come from his body and not the sword itself. But the sword could be still unique in some way, shape, or form. The sword, I think, is a Meito. I think it is a famed blade of swords, but again, we just at this point in time, we're not too sure if it is or not. I would assume so, but that's my assumption. But the sword itself, he was able to actually put the Devil Fruit power on the sword when he did the Raging Tiger, and he does the sword slash, and then we see what the Raging Tiger does, where it kind of distorts space, because gravity can do that. And he's able to distort space, and Luffy's just fine. But the result of him distorting space is his creating this very powerful attack, and he blows up one of the giant mounting cliff things surrounding Dressrosa. Another key thing that I want to point out here is this. When it comes to his Devil Fruit, it also may have direct ties to his Kenboshin no Haki. Because there are certain things he can do that it makes you wonder, well, if his powers are, let's say for example, he's not using the rings, but he can levitate all the rubble, for example. I'm not going to say that he can hear the voice of the inanimate objects, kind of like what Zoro did against Mr. One, because we haven't seen that since then. But swordsman, because he is a swordsman technically, so there could be a swordsman thing there, where just how Zoro could kind of hear the voice of his sword, and he knew where his sword was under the rock. Well, potentially Fujitora could do the same thing there, because he was able to lift up, and he knew exactly what was junk, what was debris, and what wasn't debris. So the regular buildings in Dressrosa that were actually still functional and whatnot, they were left alone just fine. But the debris, but the rubble, including the other half of Pika, the bottom half of Pika, he knew exactly what that was, considering how, and again, he's blind, so he should be able to tell these things. But if he can kind of, again, hear inanimate objects, like maybe some swordsmen or weapon users can, again, I don't go too far that direction because we know so little of that. But maybe he was able to actually hear, or he could tell with his Kenboshin no Haki, he could tell what was rubble, what was not rubble, and then he could select which things in that massive area of effect to manipulate with his gravity ability. If that's the case, then his powers also go very well with his Kenboshin no Haki. Because I think Oda's going to go along this route more so when it comes to the more powerful cats in One Piece, where Haki can be used in tandem very well when it comes to Devil Fruit powers, if they had Devil Fruit powers. So Katakuri and his Kenboshin no Haki, Luffy and his Armored Haki when it comes to the harmony that he has between the rubber and the Armored Haki, Fujitora potentially in his gravity, as well as his Haki to perceive potentially inanimate objects with his Kenboshin no Haki. Another thing that I also find, not the same thing, but I think it is similar in some sense, and it's kind of cool because I do see that similarity. But if you have ever watched Naruto, you know what happens towards the end of Naruto with my guy and the 8th gate and the Sekizos, and how with the Sekizos and the immense air pressure with the punch, he was able to make these elephant-like steps, and the elephant-like steps when we see the air pressure waves, they forced Madara down, and it made a fairly like large, deep tunnel. And it kind of reminds me a lot of Fujitora, but in this case, it's not elephant steps, it's sumo steps. So recall when he sent Zoro through a tunnel. Like, he made an underground tunnel, and he forced Zoro down with the pressure of the gravity. The same thing at the beginning when he was first introduced into the story, when after the gambling, after Luffy said, no, it was white, and then they try to rush Luffy, like, he comes in there, he takes care of business, he cuts them down, and as he sheaths in the sword, they all get sucked into the tunnel he makes through the gravity. So there is that parallel there, I guess, when it comes to the tunneling and the steps. So you have the sumo steps, the Zushi, and then you have the Sekizo, or elephant in this case, Zo. You have those steps with my guy. And they both kind of make these tunnels that go fairly deep. Like, honestly, like, it's kind of crazy because he's so powerful, and he wasn't a Marine until a year plus ago. So it's like, dude, like, where was this guy hiding? Where has he been this entire time? Like, my goodness, like, if this guy became an adversary, it's like, dude. But he's a monster. He's definitely a monster. But it's a Jump power. So there is no Vegapunk coming in there and infusing the sword with the Duffy power, though it would have been very fascinating that is no longer the case, because there were some folks theorizing, well, okay, if Fujitora's sword has the ability, then he'll still be fine in water. Well, no. All right, if he's in water, he will drown like anybody else. There are other things that we find out, like he's 54 years old, he's 277 years tall, his birthday is August 10th, so when that drops, you know, make sure to give Fujitora a shout out on his B-Day. He was born in the Grand Line. His motto of justice is reasonable justice. I'm tempted to say just justice, like in of itself, just justice, but, or like true justice. But okay, fine, fair, reasonable justice. That may differ depending on the other translations of the Vivid Card Starter Set number 2, which we'll find out in like a few days' time. Also, there's another thing here where this may coincide with him being related somehow to folks in Wano Kuni. And I don't want to say that like every guy with the sword has been to Wano Kuni or is born in Wano Kuni. Like Mihawk's been there and then CDU's been there. Listen, you have the sumo wrestler stuff. And of course, that's Japanese oriented. And we know that sumo wrestlers are in Wano Kuni. And Isho's getup is very Japanese oriented, including those sandals. Whatever they're called, I'm not too sure what they're called. But they're the same ones that Jiraiya wears. So, okay, Devil Fruit kind of coincides with Japanese stuff, with the sumo stomps, Zushi Zushi. His getup is very Japanese, Asian oriented. Maybe he also has ties to Wano Kuni. That I think is a stretch, a fairly big stretch, because again, like how many people have ties to Wano Kuni that are swordsmen? The Gorosei with the sword that potentially has the Shodai Kitetsu, the Saijo Owazemono of the Kitetsu blades. He could be from Wano Kuni. It's like how many people are theorized to have ties or have been to Wano Kuni that are powerful. And so that could be part of the reason why we never seen him since, you know, since after the time skip, because he's actually like a hidden powerful warrior or something. Even Kaido couldn't. I don't know. It's wonky. I say leave it alone. I just say leave it alone. If Oda wants to get to it, then he'll get to it at some point. Of course, fine, fair. But they say the Grand Line, not the New World. Even though some folks I know like, okay, well, since he has the stomps, well, he's probably from like not just the Grand Line. It could be specifically the New World, since the New World is a part of the Grand Line. So, okay, all right. So, but either way, Fujitora, you find his power. Again, not the biggest fan of this coming out in a data book or a starter set or Vivid Card, whatever you want to call it. I don't see why. Again, Oda said this year, we'll get back to Review at some point. Why not have Fujitora reveal this information then? Like, let's say we have Sabo and Fujitora against Scrap. So you have, let's say, Lindbergh, Karasu, Morley. They're fighting against Ryokyugyu. And then you have Sabo and Fujitora against Scrap for, let's say, a few minutes. And then he talks about his powers. You know, like, that I don't think would be hard to do. That's not hard to do at all. In fact, it'd be fairly cooler and I think more appropriate there rather than a data book. So, Again, they have their pluses and also they have their disadvantages. It's cool to find this out in a general sense. And when it comes to, again, miscellaneous stuff, like what is the favorite fruit of Toshigi, I don't care. No one cares about that. All right, fine. But devil fruit powers for guys that are fairly significant in the world of One Piece, a part of me in my mind feels like, you know what, it's kind of a cop-out to get this in a data book or in a starter set rather than actually in the story itself. Sometimes Oda says he doesn't have time. And in my mind, it's like, well, who's stopping you? Like, seriously, Oda, who is stopping you? If you say, hey, listen, man, I need like 2 months off, they'll say, oh, yes, sir. They would get on their knees, all right? They would get in BJ position if you so ask them to. It's your Oda. You are a night deity of Japan, son. Like, seriously. Like, Susanoo, Fuijin, Raijin, Izanagi, Oda. Like, he's among the deity sect. He's there. If you tell a lot of folks in Japan bend the knee, they'll bend the knee. So, if Togashi can get leeway, Togashi, the man that plays Dragon Quest, I love you, buddy. I love you. But if he gets massive leeway, I don't see why you can't. I seriously don't. So, essentially, I don't see a proper excuse when it comes to stuff like this. And Fujitora's, like, again, Fujitora's abilities. What his devil fruit is. That's not a hard thing to do. Not a hard thing to go over in actual story. But here it is. So, give me your thoughts on the matter at hand. And the power is, again, fairly tremendous. The meteorites are fairly tremendous. Folks want to go as far as to say he can bring in, like, bigger meteorites. Like, not just, like, the small ones before. And they're not quote-unquote small ones. But, like, actual, like, some folks want to say he's going to bring down the moon. Like, actually, like, or at least one of the moons. All right? Because, again, there should be, like, 19 different moons in One Piece. I've done all that so many times. I'll probably go over it again at some point. If, you know, let's say, for example, max power Fujitora, end of story. He brings down the moon. This, and let's say his fight is against Zoro, you know? Because let's say Kizaru Sanji. Fujitora Zoro. This may tie to the movie. I think it's movie number 5 or movie number 4. I think it's 5. I'm pretty sure it's 5. Zoro is one of the major players in the movie, and it's a samurai-oriented movie, or like a sword-oriented movie. And then at the end of the movie, Luffy's yelling at Zoro, yeah, cut the moon in half! Or something like that. And, you know, one has always thought, like, that's insane. But if end of story is rolling along, and you have, you know, think of, again, Whitebeard. Not in perfect condition, could tilt sections of ocean. And the admirals themselves, you can say we're holding back in many respects. Very fair to say. Very fair to say. Okay. And Marco was doing pretty good, but he was kind of nerfed because he got distracted by Whitebeard, who had like a heart attack mid-battle. Same for Jozu. Alright, fine. Let's say they do get to this point where Fujitora could bring down one of the moons, or the moon, in One Piece. Zoro comes in, the world's greatest swordsman at that point in time, probably. It's crazy, all right? It's pretty intense, okay? In fact, Blackbeard should be like that dude, considering how his gravity should be, in theory, stronger than Fujitora's own gravity. But again, he has those rings that can just go God knows where, and those rings, they're like more target that gravity at, you know, things in space or things in orbit and then pull them down. And Blackbeard, he should have stronger gravity, but Fujitora is just better at using his powers. Which I think it would indicate that maybe he's had his powers for a longer period of time than someone like Blackbeard. Or at least Blackbeard pre-time skip. Post-time skip, after 2 years, he's probably gotten better with his power, with his darkness power, probably, like, by a tremendous amount. That's what I'd argue. So, I would think it's safe to say that he can do, like, maybe not something as Fujitora can, but he can do stuff that's kind of akin to that. Because again, his power of gravity should, in theory, kind of be stronger, since he is darkness and he is gravity, rather than just manipulating gravity like Fujitora can, because he's a Paramecia. By nature, the Logias are superior than the Paramecias. By nature. The main thing here, of course, is that intangibility effect. That's the main thing there. But yeah, I feel like Blackbeard could do something similar, but well, Only time can tell. But obviously, guys and gals, that's my video. Let me know where you stand. If I missed something you want to elaborate on even further, your thoughts on the matter at hand. And I'll catch you guys and gals later. Be sure to rate the video. It is not that hard to do. I guarantee you that, because I know that you all have a device called ZMouseSue. You use ZMouseSue to click, rate the video, to click, subscribe, to click on that bell to join the squad. And of course, as always, feel free to please do, once again, comment in the comments down below. Peace, and have a nice goddamn day. Zushi Zushi.